Hi. Do you ever struggle with forgiving yourself or others? And we may go, well, it depends, right? It depends upon the situation, but there are things that we may be holding on to that we may struggle with forgiving ourselves about. Maybe it's something we've done or we feel like we've done, or in the case of other people, it's been done to us or hasn't been done. And there's a sense of burden and a sense of heaviness when we are struggling with forgiveness. And there are times where it's just like, just, I want it gone. Like, how do I get this off of me? And so while we're thinking about that, of going, all right, when we're struggling to forgive, whether it's ourselves or others, are there ways that we can begin to think about this? Are there things we can practice that are kind of helpful? And Jesus gives us a sense of this in Matthew 18:21 through 35, but I'm only going to read verses 21 through 22. Then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Should I forgive as many as 7 times? Jesus said, not just 7 times, but rather as many as 77 times. So Jesus is trying to make the point of it's like constant of going, all right, I've got to forgive. And that a sense of it's something that we practice over and over again, that it's not a one time kind of done thing. We go, all right, I forgive, whether that's self or others, and then it's all gone. We don't have to worry about it anymore. That is so often not the case. And so here, Jesus is encouraging us to practice over and over again. And that part of practicing that is we've got to pray about it. We've got to talk to God about it, because sometimes whatever we're carrying feels so heavy and so burdensome. Maybe we've even gotten comfortable carrying it and it's hard to let it go. And so being able to pray, God, help me to forgive. Help me to forgive myself about. And that every time we think of that situation, that person, or with ourselves, of praying about it, even if it's just simple, God, help me to forgive, or I forgive, and then put in the blank, whatever it needs to be. And that every time we think about it, day in and day out, that we begin that practice of praying about it, of talking to God about it. When we're thinking of forgiveness, Merriam-Webster defines it as the act of forgiving and forgive to cease to feel resentment against an offender, to grant relief from. So a sense of, all right, I'm going to grant relief, but also to cease feeling resentment, that I am not going to resent that individual. I'm not going to resent myself for. And when we're thinking through that, some other helpful things comes out of uh, a guy who wrote this piece. His name is L. Gregory Jones, and you can find it in the book Practicing Our Faith. But he talks about the dance of forgiveness. And this is kind of helpful when thinking about practicing forgiveness, of thinking about it as a dance, and that we're not perfect at it, and yet we keep just trying to do it. And so he says, we become willing to speak truthfully and patiently about the conflicts that have arisen. So we're going to get honest. We're going to get real about the things that we're struggling with, the things that we're struggling with internally. Like, why does this bother me? I need to get honest about these things. What is it kind of mapping onto in my life? Why am I having such a reaction to it? Also, he says, we acknowledge both the existence of anger and bitterness and a desire to overcome them. That it's like, all right, I am angry about, but we're going to desire overcoming that anger, that bitterness even more. And so we begin to take up those practices. And then we summon up a concern for the well being of the other as a child of God. That can be really difficult. And yet there's a prayer in that. We summon up a concern for the well being of the other as a child of God, of being able to recognize, God, I need help in seeing this person as your child. Or maybe even for ourselves, of going, God, I don't feel like a child of God. I feel like just a major screw up. And then Jones goes on to say, we recognize our own complicity in conflict. Remember that we have been forgiven in the past and take the step of repentance. So, right there, of going, you know what? None of us are perfect at all. And so, I need to be forgiven. I need to be forgiven about many things. And to recognize that we're kind of all in the same boat in that. And then it says, and take the step of repentance. And we may be going, oh, repentance, because it's so often that that word repentance has been used as punishment to harm others. Repentance simply means to turn towards God. That whatever we're kind of focused on that's really unhelpful, that now we are going to turn towards God and focus upon God's way, focus upon God's love, focus upon God's forgiveness. And then Joan says, we make a commitment to struggle to change whatever caused and continues to perpetuate our conflict. And that could be, we're struggling with our beliefs, we're struggling with our perspectives, we're struggling with just going over and over the situation on a hamster wheel. And this is an opportunity of going, all right, I'm going to make a commitment to stop the hamster wheel. I'm going to get off. And I'm going to try to make the situation better in whatever way I can. And then Joan says, we confess our yearning for the possibility of reconciliation. Now, is reconciliation possible in every situation? Not necessarily, but it's that space of going, okay, I can be reconciled, because reconciliation takes two people. And so to think about, all right, I can be open to the possibility. I can maybe going forward, there is a chance of not totally closing that door, but of going, all right, forgiveness can lead to more. And then Jones also states, in order to participate in the practice of forgiveness, we need to unlearn those things that divide and destroy communion, including our own habits of thought, feeling, and action. We need to learn to see and live as forgiven and forgiving people. Really kind of sums it up nicely of going, all right, this practice has us taking a look at our own habits, our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own actions, and what can we learn and what can I practice today in reaching, in being in that space of love and forgiving of others. And so all of these different practices are meant to help. Does it mean that we're going to be able to ace all of them today? Like, all right, I'm making that commitment. I'm going to be able to do them all right now. And there's nothing else. No, if forgiveness is a lifetime practice. And it's like, all right, if I'm going to engage in this, I'm going to learn something new about it every day. And I'm going to challenge what I understand about myself and what I understand about others. And I'm going to give space to recognize, to see people through the love of God, because I want God to see me in love. And so, how do I then see others through that lens of love? So, I hope that whatever you're struggling with today around forgiveness, because it can be a real struggle depending upon what's going on in our lives. I hope some of this is helpful in navigating and trying to find that relief, trying to have that ability to let go and to be filled with more peace and love in your life. Have a good one.